Complete history of Iceman. Robert Louis Bobby Drake was born in Floral Park, Long Island, New York, to William Robert Drake and Madeline Beatrice Bass Drake. His father is Irish-American Catholic, and his mother is Jewish. Bobby's powers first manifested when he was on a date with Judy Harmon, and a local bully by the name of Rocky Beasley tried to take Judy away for himself. Knowing Judy could not put up a good fight, Bobby pointed his hand at Beasley and encased him in a block of ice. Later, the local townspeople, having heard of the incident, came looking for him in the form of an angry mob. The local sheriff had no choice but to put Bobby in jail for his own protection. While Bobby sat in his cell at the sheriff's station, the outer wall was blown open, and a young man named Scott Summers walked in and offered to take Bobby with him. After Bobby turned him down, the two mutants got into a short battle, which was soon ended by the arrival of Professor Charles Xavier. After Xavier spoke with Bobby and his parents, Bobby's parents suggested that he go with Professor Xavier to his school for gifted youngsters. Bobby took the suggestion and left with Professor Xavier and Cyclops to become the second member of the X-Men. He is later joined by Henry Hank McCoy, Jean Grey, and Warren Worthington III as the founding members of the X-Men. Drake remains self-conscious regarding the fact that he is the youngest member of the group. Appearing in his original snow-covered form, he first battles Magneto along with the rest of the team and later the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Bobby Drake's first girlfriend is Zelda. Not long after, he takes on a new ice-covered form. He then teams up with the Human Torch for the first time. The two would become close friends as time went on. With the X-Men, he visits the Savage Land and meets Ka-Zar for the first time. He then battles the Juggernaut and is badly injured in his first battle against the Sentinels. He next battles Magneto by himself. Later, he visits Subterranea for the first time. Then, he and Beast battle the Mahayogi. During his original stint with the X-Men, Drake pursues a relationship with Lorna Dane, although the relationship does not last. Iceman is among the original X-Men captured by Krakoa, leading to a new incarnation of X-Men of which he is not a member. With most of the original team, he quits the X-Men. Iceman moves to the American West Coast to attend UCLA and becomes a founding member of the Champions of Los Angeles. However, the Champions soon dissolve. Iceman is then abducted by Master Mold, and alongside Angel, he encounters the Hulk. Iceman next aids the Thing in battling the circus of crime. Drake retires from life as a superhero to earn a college degree in accounting, but apparently at a college on the East Coast, not UCLA. While in college, he briefly rejoins the X-Men to rescue the captives of Arcade's henchman, Miss Locke. Iceman is reunited with Beast, encounters Cloud, and then returns as a full-time superhero in an incarnation of the Defenders alongside his former teammates, Angel and Beast. He also battles Professor Power's secret empire while with the Defenders. After the Defenders disband, Drake embarks on his career as an accountant. Some time later, Iceman encounters Mirage, the daughter of Oblivion. Iceman journeys back in time and meets his parents before he was born, and battles Oblivion and Mirage. He then reconciles with his parents. The original X-Men, including Iceman, reunite to form the superhero team X-Factor. With this new team, he encounters Apocalypse for the first time. During his time with the team, Loki captures Bobby, hoping to use him to gain control over the Frost Giants. Loki enhances Bobby's powers and then extracts them to restore the size of the Frost Giants. Iceman is rescued by Thor. Loki's tampering increases Bobby's powers to such an extent that he begins to lose control of his abilities. During a later battle with the Right, he is fitted with a power-dampening belt which actually helps him control his abilities. Once able only to sheath his own body in a protective coating of ice, Bobby finds he can encase the entirety of the Empire State Building. With time, Bobby gains sufficient control over his augmented powers and is able to stop using the inhibitor belt. Believing he has achieved his full potential, Bobby does not attempt to develop his abilities further. With X-Factor, Bobby then defeats Apocalypse's Horseman. Iceman helps watch over many of the younger superheroes, something he once was. Most notably, he and Beast help Boom Boom gain a more normal life. For a brief while, he also helps supervise the New Mutants and their sister team, the X-Terminators. They, in turn, save him from the deadly kiss of Infectia. Bobby also develops a romantic relationship with Opal Tanaka. After a session of ice sledding, she discovers threatening mail in her mailbox, a precursor to harassment by her cybernetically enhanced relatives of the Tatsu clan of the Yakuza, which Bobby helps her out with. After the Muir Island saga, Iceman rejoins the X-Men along with the rest of X-Factor. When he rejoined the X-Men, it seemed that he learned to control his powers and no longer needed the inhibitor belt. This made him believe he reached the limit of his powers. The X-Men were separated into two groups. Iceman was placed in the Gold Team, led by Storm, along with fellow original X-Men Jean Grey, now Sen's codename, and Archangel. One day he took Opal to eat with his parents, however his dad began humiliating her because of her Japanese heritage. The four are attacked by the Cyber Samurai, which added to William Drake's prejudices about the girl. When Bobby came across Mikhail Rasputin, he used his mutant abilities on him. Bobby discovered that his potential was still far from being reached as he converted his body into ice, not just covered by it by turning his entire body to ice. Instead of just wearing an icy exterior, Bobby now was capable of using his power in new, aggressive ways, adding spikes and padding to his ice structure. Too busy with the many threats that the X-Men faced every day, Bobby let his relationship with Opal deteriorate and, when they finally saw each other again after weeks, it was only to save her from an attack by mutant haters. Annoyed that she could only gain his attention by nearly getting killed, Opal broke off their relationship. Later, as he was checking on Emma Frost, who was in a comatose state after the mutant Trevor Fitzroy unleashed the mutant hunting sentinels on Emma Frost and her students known as the Hellions, the mansion was hit by an electricity breakdown. Emma woke up disoriented, possessed Bobby's mind, and used his powers in ways Bobby never had. She froze an entire river and traveled through water. She was looking for her pupils, but after finding out they were dead, she left Bobby's body. Bobby invites Rogue to tag along on a visit to his parents. Wrongly assuming a romantic relation, his father disapproves of Rogue, verbally attacking them with the same prejudices he expressed with Opal. This time, Bobby had enough and left after telling his father that he should just accept the fact that he is a mutant and he would never fit the definition he has of normal. He was upset that Emma exhibited greater control of his powers than he had. Since Rogue was having problems with Gambit, the two of them go on a road trip to ease their minds. During the Legion quest, Iceman was one of the X-Men who went back in time to stop Legion from killing Magneto. They succeed, but only partially. Legion does not kill Magneto, but instead accidentally murdered Xavier, his own father, years before Legion had been conceived, much less born. This paradox caused the events of the Age of Apocalypse. At the last moment before the original reality ended, Iceman's fellow X-Men, Rogue and Gambit shared a kiss. When reality resumed, Rogue's mind-absorbing touch renders Gambit comatose. Having absorbed some secret haunting memories, she needs to get away from the X-Men and Iceman volunteers to join her on a road trip, though at the same time he was starting to see visions of Emma Frost. When Gambit awoke from his coma, he tracked them down and confronted Rogue about what she saw in his mind. She broke off their relationship officially and left for good. Iceman and Gambit returned to the X-Men. When the entity known as Onslaught first appeared, Iceman was chosen as one of his test subjects, along with Storm, Cyclops, and Wolverine. They were pitted against a servant of Onslaught named Post, in a specific battle area of harsh environment to test the extent of their abilities. They won and were returned to the mansion. However, Iceman's chest had been shattered in his ice form during battle, making it impossible to change back to human form. He confronted Emma Frost and demanded to know what she did to his powers in his body and how to save himself. She refused to help since she knew that Bobby would have to do it himself. When he captured her with his ice powers, she telepathically showed him his insecurities. By confronting Opal and his father in her simulation, Iceman realized that Emma was right and managed to transform back to his human body with his chest fully intact. When Graydon Creed was running for president, with a heavy anti-mutant campaign, Bobby was chosen to infiltrate in the campaign. His father stood out in a crowd and spoke in favor of the mutants, which came as a surprise to Bobby. His father's connection with Bobby was discovered, so the people that worked for Graydon captured him and almost beat him to death. Bobby decided to stay away from the X-Men for a while to be with his dad. Zero Tolerance came across and Bobby found and helped Cecilia Reyes, who was trying to keep a secret that she was a mutant. They also joined with Charlotte Jones and the Morlock Marrow. After Bastion was defeated, he took Cecilia and Marrow to the mansion, and soon left the X-Men again for a while to be with his parents. Much later, the X-Men found evidence in one of Destiny's journals of a group known as the 12, including Xavier, Magneto, Cyclops, Phoenix, Iceman, Polaris, Storm, Cable, Bishop, Sunfire, Mikhail Rasputin and the Living Monolith. They also learned that the Apocalypse's horsemen had been kidnapping these mutants from around the globe. Iceman was captured in the woods near his home by Deathbird, who had become the Horsemen, were gathering the remaining 12, the X-Men traveled to Egypt and confronted Apocalypse and the Skrulls. Apocalypse and his forces captured all of the 12 during the battle, using them in a ritual to give the Chaos Bringer a new body and incredible power. Magneto and Polaris created opposite magnetic polarities. Iceman, Storm, and Sunfire provided elemental extremes. Cyclops, Phoenix, and Cable gave the sheer power of family. Xavier represented the power of mind, and Bishop and Mikhail stood for time and space, while the monolith linked all their energies together. Nate Gray was to be Apocalypse's new host, a powerhouse to store his massive life force. The 12 managed to free themselves, and Cyclops sacrificed his own body and life force to keep Apocalypse from getting Nate. Though the new Apocalypse was defeated, Cyclops seemed lost forever. After that incident, Iceman helped the Beast to secretly enter Genosha, as he wanted to study the legacy-infected mutates. When the High Evolutionary released his anti-mutation wave, they were trapped in the war-ravaged country. With the aid of Magneto, they escaped and joined forces with the rest of the scattered X-Men. They raided the Evolutionaries' satellite, disabled the mutation field and defeated Sinister, who had been manipulating the Evolutionary. Iceman was recruited by the living ship Proche, along with other mutants, like Jean Grey, Mystique, Toad, and Juggernaut, to preserve evolution and save it. In this journey Iceman developed his powers even further, which led him to no longer be afraid of the natural course of his powers, and he returned to the X-Men. He joined a new team of X-Men, consisting of Angel, Nightcrawler, Wolverine, and Chamber. He was using his abilities in a whole new way now, just channeling the power and not turning his body into ice. During a heated battle with a recently evolved Black Tom Cassidy, he received a chest wound. After returning to normal, his chest did not fully recover and some parts of it remained icy, and he was unable to return them to normal. At first he became afraid of it, but in time it made him gain a new attitude in life, even rude at some times. Nobody seemed to realize it at the time, but evidently this was an early sign of Iceman undergoing a secondary mutation of his own. When he repeatedly tried to evade his regular medical check, UPS, school nurse Annie Gozakanian recognized that something odd was going on with him and pressured him to show her the wound. Bobby made her promise not to tell anyone and showed her that parts of his chest are now made of ice and he is unable to change them back to flesh and blood. Iceman wonders if he will entirely turn into ice on a permanent basis. He developed an attitude that, to some of the newer addition to the X-Men, like Stacy X, Juggernaut, and Northstar, he comes across as rather arrogant, denouncing their status as team members, as they have not been around as long as he. Iceman even went as far as offending Nightcrawler by claiming that only the original 5, and no one else, has the right to call themselves an X-Man. Bobby was further frustrated when Havoc and Polaris announced their imminent wedding, him having carried a torch for Lorna for quite some time. In his frustration he turned to Annie, who had problems with the wedding too, as she was secretly in love with Havoc. The nurse surprised him with the accusation of him being a racist, feeling comfortable as a mutant who could pass like a human when needed. opposed to being a fully obvious mutant or a mere human. With his secondary mutation manifesting, though, Iceman was in danger of losing this status. Shocked by the truth of her words, Bobby fully opened up about his fears, that as a man fully made of ice he could never feel the warmth of a physical relationship again. Touched, Annie allowed him to kiss her, but when Havoc called off the wedding, wanting to be with Annie instead, she quickly dumped Bobby. Upon encountering Azazel and his followers, Iceman's body is shattered from the neck down. Afterward, he regains his entire ice form, but cannot change back to his human appearance. As a result, Bobby becomes both bitter and despondent because of this drastic change.